The case study I developed is about adult learning. My name is Nikki Tibbetts, and this case study is for EDU 6319 for the winter 2015 session. The overview of my case study, I observed an adult learner, Lance, who was enrolled in one online course to test his motivation, prior knowledge, and self-direction after 8 years away from formal learning. Those were the concepts that I observed after further analysis of him completing the course. The learner has never taken an online course, and after so many years away from the classroom is worried about his motivation to complete the course and his ability to guide himself through the units and modules. I focused on the learner's motivation, prior knowledge, and self-direction during my analysis. Adult learning characteristics. Adults are characterized by maturity, self-confidence, autonomy, sole decision-making, and are generally more practical, multitasking, purposeful, self-directed, experienced, and less open-minded and receptive to change. So a lot of times with adult learners, they're not as open to change. Something like that could be taking an online course, which adults are not always familiar with, not growing up with that kind of technology, and it's a different way of learning. So after focusing on and observing Lance's learning, again, I focused on motivation, prior knowledge, and self-direction, which is what I'm going to talk about now. A learner's motivation. Motivation is a process that determines how much energy and attention the brain and body assign to a given stimulus, whether it's a thought coming in or a situation that confronts one. Motivation binds emotion to action. It creates as well as guides purposeful behavior involving many systems and structures within the brain and body. Although Lance was worried about the overall outcome, he continued to motivate himself, taking action to succeed in his courses. So Lance had to motivate himself not only to participate in his course daily until completion, but he also had to motivate himself to find outside resources when the course did not offer them. This particular course did not have a professor or a facilitator, so he had to motivate himself to learn all of the material based on any resources that he found, and then obviously within the coursework, but a different level of motivation because he had to work so hard to teach himself large aspects of the course without a professor. Another concept that I learned in our class, how people learn, was prior knowledge. I've mentioned prior knowledge quite a bit throughout the course, and this quote in particular. If a student's prior knowledge is faulty, so inaccurate facts, ideas, models, or theories, subsequent learning tends to be hindered because they ignore, discount, or resist important new evidence that conflicts with existing knowledge. That's one of my favorite quotes from the entire course because I think that it shows a different side of prior knowledge than one that I have learned until I took this course this winter. Lance had already taken an anatomy and physiology course, which worried him he wouldn't be able to keep up, but the course brought back some positive memories and also taught him new things. In this case, prior knowledge helped his learning and did not affect it negatively like it can sometimes do. So like the quote suggests, it can sometimes conflict with existing knowledge, but in this case, because Lance was already familiar with anatomy and physiology, it helped his learning and helped him grow as a learner, which was why I included this concept. And the last concept is self-direction. I think this was one of the most important concepts when observing Lance. Adults feel the need to take responsibility for their lives and decisions, and this is why it's important for them to have control over their learning, especially because there was not a facilitator or professor within this course. Lance had all control over his learning. It was up to him to move from unit to unit and module to module in order to be successful in the anatomy and physiology course through Carnegie Mellon University. Also, adult learners resist learning when they feel others are imposing information, ideas, or actions on them. Your role is to facilitate a student's movement toward more self-directed and responsible learning, as well as to foster the student's internal motivation to learn. So as a professor or as an educator, their role would be to facilitate a student's movement toward more self-directed learning. In this case, because a professor was not present, that did not have to happen. Lance just had to take that role right away and self-direct and also be responsible for his own learning. He also, since grades were not assigned to the class, he had to just self-direct himself, and also back to the motivation in order to complete each module, knowing a grade was not assigned at the end. And here are my resources. Thank you.